Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Mawlana Abil Qasim Muhammad. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Our series of discussions go into its fifth night. Yesterday, we delved into some of the more subtleties of the secret that's been given to us. These majalis of Sayyid al-Shuhada that we come to is an institution in itself. Its survival is the protection of the faith. And what we have today is because of these 10 nights. If you look at the history of Shiism that dates back 1400 years, at least this strand of Shiism, its followers, its members, have been on this track only and only because of this culture of Ashura and Karbala. So therefore, there's an intention when you come to a majlis. For some people, that intention could be the fulfillment of hajat. And we've seen it many a time. The people who come here, their hajat are fulfilled. For other people, there could be a different intention. Could be the ma'arif of Ahlul Bayt and understanding that. There's many intentions, and all of those intentions are correct. For whichever reason you come, it's correct. But there's a loftier intention as well, that when you come here to the majlis of Imam Hussein, that lofty intention is how you go from Thārallah to Baqiyyatallah. In other words, how do you go from Imam Hussein to the living Imam of the time? That's the purpose of this. These majalis are not just words, they're nur. The dhikr of Imam Hussein is such, is that it's nur. And in particular, when you look at the traditions of the last days, it becomes even more imperative for people to go towards Imam Hussein. Look, we discussed yesterday, when Allah favors somebody according to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, He puts a light in their heart. That light has two characteristics. One is that it pulls a person towards the ishq of Hussein, and the other one, it pulls a person to the ziyarah of Hussein. But remember another thing as well. Remember this. If you look at the past, we Shias have been famous for remembering Imams who have passed away from this world. We have this intense love for them. But we find in tradition that when the 7th Imam was in prison and all the world was going on Arba'in and going towards Imam Hussein, they forgot the Imam who was in prison. And at that stage, a reminder came that remember this, though you may love those Imams who have gone, but remember your living Imam as well. Because your living Imam is that manifestation of the nur of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He's the manifestation of the nur of Allah. So everything that we do is a bridge that takes us to the living Imam. Why? Because the living Imam is Hujjatullah on earth. In fact, if I take it a step further, if you want to see Allah's face on earth, look at the living Imam. Right? What does that mean? Look, let's take it a step further. Allah doesn't have a face, in essence. Why? Allah's la mahdud. Allah's infinite. If we say He has a face, in essence, what do you do then? You delimit God. God is absolute. The minute you say face, it becomes created. Here, what does face mean? There could be 100 Muhammads sitting in this room, but your face gives you a uniqueness. When I look at your face, I understand which Muhammad it is. Why? Because your face, in essence, is what? Your recognition. When I look at your face, it gives recognition. From 100 Muhammads, your face gives that recognition that makes you unique. In the same way, Allah's recognition is the Imam of the time. When you look at the Imam, from that face, you go directly towards Allah itself. It's a bridge. That La Mahdud becomes recognized because of that face. Otherwise, Allah's Ghaib al-Ghaib. If it wasn't for the hujjat of the time, you'd never come to understand what Allah is. So therefore, what is this majalis of Imam Hussein? This majalis of Imam Hussein increases the nur in your heart that takes you to the face of Allah. With this in mind. So look, in these days, where Imam Ali says, he says that the last days will be the days of dhalal and dhulamat, darkness, confusion. In those days you'll see, if you look at what Imam al-Sadiq says about the state of the Shia in the last days, we've looked at one of them, I'll emphasize that one again, we've got 5 more to go. If you look at the emphasis, what does he say? He says in the last days, Shias will be divided theologically, ideologically, politically. Now look, it's not the fact that we've not been divided, but these divisions will become apparent. These divisions will be all over, for example, social media. These divisions will be such that it will make our communities weak. The Imam says, for as long as you are united, your enemies will never overcome you. But the minute that you divide, the Shias of Ahlul Bayt, the house of Ali divides, then what happens? Your enemies will overcome you. And that's exactly what's happening today. If you're being killed today in Parachinar, and if you're being killed today in Afghanistan, and in different parts of the world you're being oppressed today, it's because you've forgotten one thing, and that's your unity. When that unity under the wilayat of Ali comes together, then there's a great energy, there's a great power there. And look, it's a good thing. We want to reach out to other people. We want to reach out to the Sunni community. We want to reach out to the Christian communities. We want to do unity with other people. But remember one thing, unity starts at home. Unity... Remember this, if the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen comes together, then slowly but surely everything comes together. But where does it start off from? This is one of the signs the Imam says, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam says. Ibn Ta'us has narrated this, that in the last days you'll find that there will be divisions on politics, on ideology. When divisions take place, as you know, we're forgiving when it comes to other denominations, but when it comes to ourselves, we're very aggressive. You'll see we'll be targeting each other, we'll be swearing at each other. All of these things which are haram. And remember this, when these things happen, naturally the heart then becomes darkened and the ma'arif of Ahlul Bayt starts removing itself. This is why the emphasis has been there. The more darkness spreads, the more you go to Imam Hussein. The hadith says this, we have tradition on this by the way, that if you're poor, at least once a year go to Imam Hussein. Though you have a living Imam, but the fact of the matter is this, Imam Hussein is an antidote for dhalal and dhulamat. And I've seen myself that as these years have gone by, your children's baqa, their survival comes with Imam Hussein. Right? So bear this in mind. If you've noticed a Shia revival in the last 10 to 15 years since the fall of Saddam, that Shia revival has only come because of the fact that your frequency to Imam Hussein has increased. Otherwise, the religiosity in your children is leaving. If you look and see today, this particular generation of the under 30s are probably the most intolerant that we have in all of Shiism. If you look at it and see, the intolerance that they have, the lack of istidlal that they have, the lack of, in fact, knowledge that they have, the lack of akhlaq they have. But the only thing that's saving them is Imam Hussein. And you'll notice, children as young as 13, when they go to Imam Hussein, it mellows them. It lightens their heart. Why is that? Look, that nur of Imam Hussein that comes in the majalis of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the way that it's removed, the first is when you have bad company. So remember, your surroundings also influence you. If you look at our Urafah, they've said, from the food that you eat to the people that you meet has an impact on your nafs. If you're with people who are sinners, and we're all sinners, but if a person is doing major sins, so there's 2 types of sins. One you do it openly, one you do it hidden. At least a person who's hiding at least has some ghayrah. Because we know we're sinners. Imam says, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq says, he says, my Shia will sin. My Shias will sin. They're not infallible, but the fact is that they repent quickly. But what you find in the last days is that you'll find people who claim to be religious, they will justify their sin. They'll justify these negativities. They'll say, no, this is what it is. And that justification closes the door of mercy, because mercy comes when you repent. Mercy is when you humble yourself. So the biggest thing that destroys you from the nur of Ahlul Bayt is arrogance. And that's what happened with Shaitan. His arrogance not to do sajda in front of Insani Kamil, Hujjatullah was Adam, took him towards Shaitan. The arrogance of people is destroying them. You know, sometimes you think to yourself, one person came and says, I'll never forgive this person. I said, who are you to forgive or not? Allah forgives. Over what exactly? Have you ever spoken to this person? No, I've never spoken to this person, but I have this enmity towards him because this is what I think he's done. Or this is what I think she's done. The arrogance of Shias is unbelievable today. And when arrogance seeps in, then what happens? Your submission to the Imam goes. Why? Because what does the Imam say? Or in fact, when you go to Ziyarat Ashura, what is the Imam saying here? Imam is saying what? Marifat of Allah is one thing in Ziyarat Ashura, but he's saying Marifat of the Imam is wa awliya'ihim as well. Marifat of the awliya of the Imam. The awliya of the Imam is who? The awliya, the Shias of the Imam. You've been told to have ma'rifah even if you disagree with a Shia, but be very vigilant how you treat them. When our personal issues go online, look, there's a hadith by the name of Maqbula Umar ibn Hanzala. Right, it's a Maqbula. It's a tradition that is used, at least in the modern day, to back the idea of Wilayat al-Faqih, basically. Wilayat al-Faqih is backed because of this particular tradition known as the Maqbula of Umar ibn Hanzala. The irony of it is that it begins to say that if two people have an ikhtilaf, or let's expand that, if two groups have an ikhtilaf, a problem amongst each other, go to the Hakim al-Shah, basically. And it says go to the Wali al-Faqih, or go to the person who's the mujtahid. Don't take your problems and go to courts, or don't take your problems and go outside into the world. What happens? Because the respect of Shiism diminishes. Today your ikhtilaf is all over YouTube. It's all over Facebook. It's all over Instagram, which, by the way, I'm not on any of these things, so I only hear from people secondarily. And it's good maybe that I hear secondarily because it doesn't mess up your mind. But if you look at it and see, your issues are surrounded all over the social media, all over WhatsApp and so forth. What happens? Remember this. If two Shia groups or two Shias are having a fight amongst each other, it leads to tasdeef al-madhhab. It basically weakens the faith, it destroys the image. The minute the image is destroyed, you've committed a major sin. If you have a problem amongst each other, Islam has told you a template. If you follow this template, your heart is not darkened, your heart is not destroyed, your heart is not taken away from the nur of the Imam. Imam is in pain when two of his Shias argue. Imam is in pain. You know, I'll give you an example. In the Quran, Khums is divided into 6 parts, right? Today you divide into 2, Sahm Sada and Sahm Imam. That's not how it traditionally was. It was divided into 6 parts. Sahm of Allah, of the Prophet, of the Imam and Ahlul Bayt, right? Then the Miskeen and the Yatim and the Wayfarer. So it was divided into 6 parts. The Sahm, which was part of the Imam would use his money to resolve the differences amongst the Shia if he had to. Imam saw it that lofty, that if there is problems and the unity of my Shia is destroyed, then the entire house of Islam comes down. So the most important thing for Shias in this time, in particular when we talk about the time of Ghaybat al-Kubra, is the unity of the Shia. And I know that we have a unity with the Sunni community and we have a unity with the wider communities. But they can all say, if you guys haven't got your house in order, what are you coming to us for? The most important thing is this. So remember one thing. Whenever there's a problem between two groups, it could be in Houston. Then in Houston, mashallah, you're all ma'soom. So let's go to the neighboring cities. When there's a problem between two mosques, as opposed to going to court, there's a methodology. As opposed to arguing with each other, if you are certainly convinced that a person has committed a sin, fine, distance yourself. But don't go bad-mouthing each other. That destroys the faith. Because the outside world, you know, I tell you one thing, some of the greatest Sunni scholars alive said to me many years ago, they said, we always thought Shias were united until social media. Now you're as divided as us. Automatically what's happened then? The respect, or if I may say in your language, the abru of the Shias have been destroyed. Once that happens, are you somebody who's a zina to the Imam? Your sixth Imam is saying. All Shias believe in Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. What's he saying? He's saying, be our zina. Be our beauty. Don't be someone who becomes a negative stain for us, basically. So bear this in mind. Yes, okay. So what does Ahlul Bayt say? If you have a problem, go to your seniors. For example, if you do taqleed, go to the marja. There have been cases in the last 30 years that when there were differences, and there were some serious differences, theological as well. You saw differences, the famous cases in front of you. There's one famous case over Messianism. I'm not going to mention names or anything else. But that case goes into Ayatollah Sistani, doesn't it? It doesn't act out in the people. People are not condemning each other. So what happens? Generally what happens when there's a problem? You go to your alim, you go to the elders, you try and resolve it in-house. If it's not resolved in-house, you go to the next stage. You go to the offices of the maraja. If it's still not resolved, you go to the marja. If the marja hasn't said anything, if the officers of the maraja haven't said anything, if your senior ulama haven't said anything, then who are you to turn around and start a fitna? Bear this in mind. As much as you think that you're right, if the higher sources haven't said anything and they're quiet, it means there's a hikmah behind it. If Sayyid Ali Sistani is not saying anything, there's a hikmah behind it. There's a hikmah in remaining quiet. And I've heard from youth to say, no, but it's logical. So-and-so has done this, so therefore I'm going to go and attack them openly. No. If there's anybody who has the right to attack a Sayyid Ali Sistani, none of you have. Do you not think that when a fitna rises in Shiism that he doesn't know? No, he knows everything. Everything is fed back to him. If he's not done something or said something, if you have a case, go and argue it with him. Don't argue it in the public where Shiism is then destroyed, where the face is defaced. Because remember this, when there is a defacing taking place of Shiism, then the nur of wilayah diminishes in you. When does this generally happen? When an issue becomes public, it's because of an ego issue. Ego and arrogance come together. It's a satanic vice that pushes you away, as religious as you may think a person is. But the minute that they come out like this, then what happens? Look, there's been many cases in front of me. None of these cases you bring out to the public. There could be people I dislike, for example. You'll never hear it from my voice. Why? Ayatollah Sistani could dislike some people. He'll never say anything. Other senior ulama may dislike people. They may even feel some people are inhirafi. They won't say it in public. Why? Because the minute that you come out, it defaces the face of Shiism. More than mine and your life is the respect of the Imam. So maintain that respect of the Imam. Right? Maintain that respect of the Imam. Don't destroy yourselves like this. Because remember, here the science says, here the Imam is saying, that in the last days, you'll find fitna rises. When fitna rises among Shias, automatically you'll become weak. You'll be fragmented. Even if there's millions of you on earth, even then you'll find that you're weak. Your enemies will overcome you. You'll be fragmented. You'll be disrespected. But when you are united, then your respect increases. Look and see, as long as you're united behind your Imam, your respect is there. But the day you take everything in your own hands and you think, well, Allah's given me an aql, therefore I'm going to use my aql. You know, in mantiq they say there's a word using your aql as well. Unfortunately, many of us don't actually know how to use our aql. This is why the first thing ulama learn in mantiq is how to actually use your aql. That you go for a step-by-step process. If you look at Greek logic and the way, I'm not talking about scientific logic now. In the olden days, Greek logic would teach you how to use your intellect. Because it's not apparent to everyone. When the Quran says do tadabbur and tafakkur, it also gives you principles as to how to think as well. But look, if we had time, we'd go into it. So the one thing is this. The nur of the Imam, the nur of the majalis of Hussein is diminished. The first thing is when your ego gets in the way. And many a time the ikhtilaf that we have between each other is to do with ego, nothing else. If you go deeply inside and think, why do I hate this person? For example, I've never spoken to this person, but there's something negative that goes even further back. This negativity. Because if we're true followers of the Imam, if you remember what Hazrat Zahra says, Let me put a tradition in front of you. Maybe we'll take it like this. You see, people claim that Islam is not a matriarchal faith. I would say Shiism is a matriarchal faith. 1400 years ago, when Rasulullah used to go out of Medina, he used to leave his daughter in charge for people to ask her questions. 1400 years ago. The Western world only recently has given those type of rights to women. 1400 years ago, they would come to her home and ask questions. One of the questions was this. A man said to his wife, you go to the door of Zahra, knock on the door of Fatima, alayhi salam, knock on the door, I have a question. We've heard that the Shias, the followers of Fatima, hell is haram on them. Even if they were chucked into fire, it wouldn't burn them. What are the qualities of these Shia? So they go and this lady knocks on the door, she goes inside. She says, my husband has a question. What are these qualities? 4 qualities are listed. Now, I've not recited this particular hadith, I must say, in 13 years. So if I can remember it, I'll tell you. First quality is this, right? You do that which is wajib on you to do. And you refrain from that which Allah has told you to refrain from, right? Makes sense. But there were 2 more qualities that were difficult. One is you do what we like. Meaning what? If we like that you have sul amongst each other, then you try and do that. If we want you, for example, there's a tradition that the Imam wants you to remove negativity from your heart for another Shia. You may have a personal issue with them. You may have a family issue with them. You may feel that they're bad. For as long as that person says, Aliyun Waliullah, then you make sure you make excuses for that person. You make sure you have a dialogue with that person. You make sure you don't disrespect that person. That is the maqam of a Shia. And what we dislike, you dislike. If we dislike riba, you dislike riba. If we dislike tu'ma, you dislike tu'ma. Based on this condition, you find that very few people come up to that standard of Shia. Okay, you're a muhib maybe. And this is why if you look at Hadith Kisa, it talks about the muhib as well. You get the blessing, but you're not a Shia. That title, literal title of a Shia, is when you sacrifice your own nafs for the nafs of the Imam. If the Imam wants something, you blindly, that's it. If the Imam says his nighttime is nighttime, and if he says his daytime is daytime, why? His aql is the aql of Allah. It's different. Then you don't work your aql then. Yes, they say the Shia is intellectual. In front of anyone you'll find that his intellect is high. But in front of the Imam he submits himself. His intellect is sharp because of his submission of his intellect to his Imam. Bear this in mind. That's when the nur comes. Why? When you submit yourself, that's when the nur comes, right? Look at it, look at the tradition. Habib ibn Madahir, Kumail, Sahib al-Sir of Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? Maytham al-Tammar, Salman. Look at Salman. Salman knows the asar of alim and mawara, but when it comes to Ali, he submits himself. If Salman wanted, he could tell you things that you would never have heard of before. He could tell you the future. He could tell you secrets. Salman doesn't do that. Salman's submission is to his Mawla. And it's because of that submission Salman becomes Salman. The more that you submit your heart to the Imam, right? So therefore, to go back to the very beginning of what I said, which was this, these majalis take you from Thārallah to Baqiyyatallah. Heart needs to be there. The migration is not a migration of your ears, it's the migration of the heart towards the nur of the wilaya. Right? Nur of that wilaya. So that's the first thing. The second thing the Imam says, he says in Akhir al-Zaman, you'll see the spirituality of the Shia decreasing. The spirituality is in there. Though we're meant to be spiritual, we're meant to be mystical, we're meant to have irfan, we're meant to have ma'rifah. But you find spirituality decreases in the last days. How do you expand that spirituality? Look, I'm going to tell you some things. You have the secrets with you. The problem is, because it's been given to you free, therefore you don't have value to that. If I charged you for it, then certainly then you'd have value to that. Should I tell you something? What is the greatest dhikr? Right? The greatest umumi dhikr has tawheed in it, nabuwa in it, imamat and wilayat in it. Which dhikr is that? Dhikr of salawat. Now look, compared to yesterday, we've gone into a more of a technical discussion. But sometimes this is necessary. Look, you don't understand the power of salawat, right? Allahumma salli, Allahumma, Allah is there. Salli ala Muhammad is there. Wa ala Muhammad is there. All of a sudden you have what? All of your aqeedah is encapsulated in one dhikr. I'll give you an example. On a practical level, somebody comes to Ayatollah Bahjat. They say that my daughter's not getting married. Well, it happens to you. Some of you may have the same issue. Our daughter's not getting married. What should we do? They were expecting him to give a huge prescription. He says very simply, he says, recite salawat and istighfar. Istighfar removes the dirt, salawat increases the nur. I remember when I was studying Manazil al-Sa'irin under the son of Ayatollah Bahjat. He gave me 21 different benefits of salawat itself. He says, you will not find this anywhere, I'm going to teach it to you. Just before I came, I was trying to go through all of my books to try and figure out where I'd written them. But one of them is this. Salawat is the only thing that takes all of your negativity and turns it into positivity. If because of your sins you're minus 100, your salawat can take you from minus 100 to plus 100. So salawat has the same hukum as istighfar as well. But more than that, not only does it negate, but it makes you rise as well. This is why the tradition says if a person recites salawat, Rasulullah himself will come and kiss him before his death. This is why ulama have said that if you ever have a haja, make the intention that you'll recite 10,000 salawats. You'll see that in one sitting if you can do. I've seen miracles on this. I've seen miracles on this. 10,000 salawat, immediately the door opens. Anyway, our Bahjat says, he says recite istighfar and salawat. It's in front of us, it's not something which is, in a week that person came back, he says, Agha, guess what? I've come to you because yesterday a very good proposal after many years came from my daughter. Why? Power of salawat. Don't underestimate this. In times of difficulty, especially in times of confusion, that's salawat, when it goes into the heart, that nur begins to come out. So remember this. What blocks the nur? Your company. Even to the extent of the food that you eat. The Urafah say, the mystics say, don't eat outside. Even food outside, if it's from somebody who's not Ahle Wilaya, it's going to have a spiritual effect. But look, I don't have time to go into that, and our time is very short. But what I'll do is I'll come back to this. There are some practical things that a person can do to increase that light. Ja'far al-Mujtahidi was one of the awtad of the 12th Imam. I never met him, but he is in our lifetime. He's one of those helpers of the Imam for us. Ja'far al-Mujtahidi was Sahib Karamat, right? He was a person, if you looked at him, he didn't look like this. His hair was down to there, his beard was down to here. He was a Daravish basically, he looked like a, as you would say, a Malang. But all the Maraja respected him. And had it not been for the Maraja respecting him, I wouldn't tell you this. Ja'far al-Mujtahidi, if you haven't heard of him, let me give you 2 or 3 things because I want to come to what I want to tell you. Ja'far al-Mujtahidi, whenever there was a shahada of an imam, he would invite a guy called Ayatollah Burqi to come and recite on the minbar. After the minbar, Ja'far al-Mujtahidi would divulge some secrets of Ahlul Bayt. One day Ayatollah Burqi came and he recited the majlis and he got up and he left, or he wanted to leave quickly. And the reason why he wanted to leave quickly was because Ayatollah Burqi had become old, and this is in the 70s. He wanted a car. And it so happened that they were giving a car on discount. Because he was old, he wanted to have a car to move around. So somebody said to him, you've got to quickly come before 4 o'clock. And if you sign your name on this, then we'll give you a car on discount. So he said, look, I've got a majlis at Ja'far Agha's house. So he says, look, go and quickly just come after you finish. So as he gets up to go, Ja'far Mujtahidi says, brother, come and sit down. Join us. So he came and he joined him and he sat down. And then a couple of minutes later wanted to get up and go again. So Ja'far Mujtahidi looks up and he says, don't worry, the car that you want you'll get, don't worry, sit down. And Ayatollah Burqi says, I didn't understand what he's saying. Anyway, I sat down again. And it happened a third time. Third time he looks up and he says, Ja'far Mujtahidi. He says, the car that you're going to will come to you. Please sit down again. So Ayatollah Burqi says, I sat down. I said, fine, if Ja'far Agha is saying. So he says, he sat down. He says, half an hour hadn't gone past. Ja'far Agha was sitting there. A young man comes in. He said, Ja'far Agha, I want to give hadiyah to you, this car. He gives it to him. He looks towards Ayatollah Burqi. Ayatollah Burqi, when he looks at Ja'far Mujtahidi, he puts his head down. Ayatollah Burqi puts it, Ja'far Mujtahidi says to him, he says to him, remember one thing, your arbab haven't left you. Don't sell yourself for this world. Sit down. They said, Ayatollah Burqi got up, he went out, he started to cry. So people asked him, they said, what's the story? He told them the story. He said that I wanted a car, I told no one. But when I came to this majlis, it's as if somebody whispered my heart to the ears of the heart of Ja'far Mujtahidi. When Ja'far Mujtahidi said, don't compromise your arbab, I began to cry. Why did I get up from the majlis of Imam Hussein, knowing full well if I want something, Hussein ibn Ali's doors open? He said the story was this: the higher up you get, your faith is in that. Right? Your faith then comes into Imam Hussein. Here Ja'far Mujtahidi was teaching a lesson. Whatever you want, come to the door of Hussein. Don't run away for worldly things. Those worldly things will be there. But if you give the respect and the adab to Hussein, then you'll find that you rise. Then all the doors open to you. Remember, in the valley of Ishq, the one who's the biggest ashiq is the one who has adab. Right? Bear this in mind. There's no halal and haram when it comes to ishq. Ishq is adab there. How did Habib become Habib? He used to go and take the dirt of Imam Hussein's feet and he used to put it on his head. That's how Habib becomes Habib. What does Rasulullah say? When Rasulullah saw him lift up the dirt and put it in his head, he says, look, this Habib, I love him as well because he loves Hussein. If you want Rasulullah to love you, next time you go to Imam Hussein's shrine in Karbala, don't stand there taking a selfie. Take the dirt from Bain al-Haramain and put it into your hair. Put your forehead and put it into the ground. People always say, who are these guys? Why do they put their head on the floor for? People criticize even in Karbala. Some Shias say, look at these guys, look at how backward they are. They're rubbing their shoulder or they're rubbing their head on the ground. They don't know what this is. The more adab you give, the more Imam Hussein gives to you. Right? The khak on the floor where your Imam steps is a shifa for you. If you understood that only. If you understood why. He's the son of Zahra. Son of Zahra. Only then did you become ashiq. The story is in front of you. Habib, when he was younger, fell off a roof. People were crying he was dead. He was dead. Hadith is there. Habib fell, he was a young boy, fell onto the ground. He was 4 years old. But he loved another person, and that person was Hussein ibn Ali. When Imam Hussein as a 4-year-old came, Rasulullah was standing there, what does he say? He says, Habib, get up. Imam Ma'soom says, get up. Habib got up. Why? With this in mind. These miracles still happen today. You just need an eye to see them. Right? Bear this in mind. Ja'far Mujtahidi is teaching us a lesson. Look, I'll give you another lesson as well. So first thing is this. Especially in these last days, increase your spirituality by putting your faith in Hussein ibn Ali. Hussein will never leave you, believe me. The minute that you made an intention to come to this majlis, Imam Hussein is on you. If the Quran is saying those people who are shaheed in the way of Allah are alive and the sustenance is there, who are me and you to negate that? Bear this in mind. All of your Imams watch you. Okay, they're all compressed into the living Imam. But every Imam has his place. The day you make your intention to go to the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, from Houston as you begin to walk, Sayyid al-Shuhada is watching. Karam of Sayyid al-Shuhada is there. Zahra is with you. Bear this in mind. You don't realize this. We sell ourselves cheap. We sell ourselves short. Don't ever sell yourself short. Imam Hussein's there with you. Ahlul Bayt is there with you. They've never left you. You know, sometimes I find, when you go to a majlis, somebody gives you a whole list of their marhumin, right? And it's good, you should do. But remember one thing. It's not transactional. Ahlul Bayt have already blessed your marhumin the minute that you've made an intention. Whether the dhakir forgets to remember, sometimes he forgets, people get upset, you forgot to recite the name. Don't worry about that. Hussein ibn Ali already knows. Remember, ishq is with the heart. Hussein is not transactional. Hussein just wants you to take a step towards him. He opens the door to everything else. You've made the intention, Hussein ibn Ali is there for you. Bear this in mind. So don't ever sell yourself short on this. The more ma'rifah you have of Imam Hussein, the better it is for you in this lifetime. It gives you peace. Look, let me give you one more tradition. My time is running. Fortunately, we don't have time. Just so you can understand how Kareem the Imam is. In Najaf, there used to be an alim, and the alim once said, he said, I saw a dream. I went to sleep in the daytime, my eyes shut. He says, I saw a dream. In my dream, I saw a young man, and I was standing in the haram of Imam Hussein. I saw this young man go to the zari, and I saw Imam Hussein come out, smile and greet him. He said, I knew immediately this is a dream which is a true dream, a sadiq dream. He says, I got up, I went running to the haram because I knew something was about to happen. He said, when I got to the haram, I saw the young man. I saw the young man smile. I didn't see Imam Hussein physically come, but I saw everything else. I couldn't see Imam Hussein, but I could see the expressions on this young man that I saw in my dream. So when I finished, I ran to him. I said, son, I know Imam Hussein was smiling at you. I know Imam Hussein was replying to your salam. What is it that you've done that Imam Hussein does this? You know what he replied? He says, oh, my parents, I come from a village outside of Karbala. I live 1 farsakh away. Roughly, I think it's about 3 or so miles. He says, I live 1 farsakh away. He says, both of my parents were old and they were ill. So what I used to do was every week I used to take one of my parents. One day it so happened I was taking my father on the horse and my mother started to cry. So I went and I said, Mother, what's the problem? She says, look, I want to go to Hussein. He replies, I said, but Mother, it's not your turn this week, it's next week. She says, son, I don't know if I'm going to live until next week. He says, don't worry, Mother, I'll carry you on my shoulders. He said, I put my mother on my shoulders and I began to walk. After a while I got tired, I sat down, I got up. Eventually I got to Karbala. He said, when I went to Karbala, because of what I did for my parents, Hussein ibn Ali was standing there, smiling at me and greeting me. He says, both of my parents have died, but even to this day, whenever I come into Karbala, I see Sayyid al-Shuhada standing there and smiling at me. People won't comprehend that, you know why? They think, but Hussein 1400 years ago. No, you don't understand. Hussein is the son of Zahra. For Ahlul Bayt, this world or that world is all one. They're there for you, but you've got to be there for them. Meaning what? Meaning submit. You being there for them means submit your heart. What did you do? There are many things that we need to discuss in the coming nights. Honestly, I haven't even started the series yet. Still making up groundwork on this. And we've only got 5 lectures to go, or 4 lectures to go. But the fact of the matter is this. One of those things you must remember is Silatul Rahim. In Akhir Zaman, the hadith says that you'll find children disrespecting their parents. You'll find that elders' hearts will be hard towards their youngsters. The ideal situation is that your heart is merciful to the youth, and the youth are always respectful to their elders. Don't ever break ties with your family, even if you know they're not good people. I'm not saying be stupid. What I'm saying though is be such that you don't break ties. The breaking of ties also removes you from the lutf of Allah. It diminishes your life. Look, Mutawakkil Abbas had a son. His son goes to the Imam of the time. He wasn't a Shia, but he went to the Imam of the time. He says, guide me, Yabna Rasulullah, because ultimately, even if you're not a Shia, but you still believe in the Imam as the son of the Prophet. He says, Yabna Rasulullah, guide me. He says, what? He says, my father has insulted Zahra. Should I go and kill him? Imagine this. What does Imam say? The Imam says, however treacherous your father is, it's not for you to kill him. And Mutawakkil was it. He demolished Imam Hussein's grave 7 to 8 times. He says, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. He says, what if I do? He says, there's no sin on you, but if you do, Allah will diminish your life. He went and killed his father. He died in 6 months. Allah diminished. This causality is there. It doesn't matter if your parents, whatever they are, kafir, mushrik, whatever they are. Ahlul Bayt said, respect your parents. Part of that wilayah is to respect. If you come here and your mother's happy with you, then you see your heart opens up more to Imam Hussain. Look, I'll give you a tradition. Final tradition, and then we'll go to the Masab of Imam Hussain. Final tradition is this. There was a guy by the name of Zakaria. He was a Christian, he became a murid of Imam al-Sadiq. He used to live in Kufa. His mother was Christian, he'd become a Shia. One day a time came for him to go to Hajj. He goes on the Hajj. As he goes on the Hajj, he says, I want to go to Medina as well. So he goes to Medina to see Imam al-Sadiq. Gets there. Mawla, you know what he asks him immediately? He says to him, is your mother alive? He says, yes. Because he asked him, he says, Mawla, what should I be doing? Immediately, Imam is Imam, right? He goes, is your mother alive? He says, yes. He says, serve your mother. With your own hands, feed your mother. He says, but my mother's a Christian. He goes, so what? Eat with her, as long as there's no pork on the table, because for Muslims pork is haram. Eat with her, put the drops in her mouth. Be good with her, kiss her hands, kiss her feet, or whatever. He says, fine, my Mawla said it, I'll do it. He goes back to Kufa, he starts doing this. Mother realizes, she says, son, ever since you've come back from Medina or Mecca, you've changed. You're so compassionate, you're so loving now. What's the story? She said, he said, I went to my Imam, and my Imam said to me, act like this with your mother. You know what she replies? She says, is he a prophet? He says, no, he's not a prophet. He goes, well, we in Christianity have a tradition that anyone who teaches that is teaching the words of the prophet. They say that she was to die. Before she died, she says, I know that your religion is haqq. Nobody teaches these things anymore. I swear by Allah that Allah is one. Muhammad is the messenger, Ali is his wali, and your Imam is my Imam. And she dies a believer. Yeah. Now here I'm using all the traditions of because I can see Sunnis in the crowd, I can see. One thing that we have, mushtarak amongst all of us, is the love of Imam Ja'far Sadiq. Whether you believe in him as an Imam, as we do, or you believe in him as the son of the Prophet. But the fact of the matter is this. So every tradition I'm giving is for everyone to implement. It's found within all of the house of Islam. So bear this in mind. Akhlaq is important. Respecting your parents, all of these things are there. We know them, but we don't follow them. Look, if you think this religion has come to me and you easily, it hasn't done. People have given their blood for this religion to come to you. So what you don't understand, it's been given to you on a plate. Ahlul Bayt have been slaughtered for this religion to come to you. Ahlul Bayt, especially at the beginning of Islam, Ahlul Bayt have been slaughtered for this religion to come to you. Look, my time has run out. But as these nights go on, these nights become heavier. These nights become heavier. You know, tonight we're here to give condolences to a mother who there's no one in the world today to call mother anymore. Look, if I can put it another way, the pinnacle of a woman, if you ask them, is when they become mothers. You notice. Ask a woman who can't have children, when she sees other children running, how she feels. She may feel happy for the other woman, but there's a sadness that I wish I could have children as well. Now ask a woman who has children, who's raised children, and those children are taken away from her, how she would feel. Look, today, when you cry, I want you to cry in a way that Zahra's heart feels relaxed. You know why? Because today you're here to give condolences to Zahra for Zainab. Zainab had 2 children, Aun and Muhammad. Imam Jafar Sadiq says, he says, when you cry for Hussein, cry like a broken-hearted mother cries. This is when the rahmah of Allah comes upon you. Let me start the narration like this. Many people don't understand who Zainab is. For Amir al-Mu'mineen, Zainab was such, Ali never cried. But you found that when Zainab cried, it made Ali cry as well. Let me give you a tradition. The day Zainab was to be married, in the Hijazi culture they say that the mother takes the girl to the house of her husband. They say Zainab was dressed, waiting on the door. Amir al-Mu'mineen was standing at the back crying. Why? Because he's remembering Zahra. He was thinking, if only Zahra was here today, she could have taken Zainab to the house of her husband. Zainab was standing there looking right and left. They say that when no one came, they say Hassan and Hussein walk forward and say, Father, can we take our sister and become our mother today? You can imagine, right? Zainab is taken to the house of her husband. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes and he comes back to the house. When he comes into the home, he goes into a room. When he walks into the room, he sees Hussein was sitting there crying. He says, son Hussein, why do you cry for? You know what the reply was? The reply was this, I've never been separated from my sister like this. I've never been so. Says, Father, do you give me ijazah to go to the house of Zainab to see how she is? Amir al-Mu'mineen did something. He sent Fidda with Zainab just in case. So Fidda was always with Zainab. They say Hussein runs like a child runs to the house of Zainab, knocks on the door, Fidda comes out. Says, son, why are you here for? You know what he replies? He says, I miss my Zainab. Then Fidda replies, she says, Hussein, if you miss Zainab, Zainab misses you as well. As Hussein walks in, Zainab had her hair open, she had her hands up, she was saying, Allah, I've never been separated from Hussein like this. Says, I've never been separated from Zainab like this. Like they say, tears are in your nasib. If Zahra wants you to cry, you'll cry. But tonight, just understand, I don't need to recite anything. Just the pain of Zainab should be such. You know, they say that Zahra has a special lutf over some people. You'll see them. There's a lutf. Why? Because you see they lead the azar. You can see now that certain people Allah has blessed like this. Look, let me tell you one more tradition, if I can do. They say that when Amir al-Mu'mineen becomes Khalifa, he goes in the masjid of Kufa, he's standing there. He turns around to Imam Hassan, he says, son, go and bring my daughters, I miss them. They say when Imam Hassan comes to Medina, he comes into Mahalla Bani Hashim. He says, daughters of Ali, Ali misses you. They say one daughter got up and she walked out. She says, brother, tell our father I miss him even more than that. Relationship, right, between a father and a daughter. So Imam Ali says, he says to Imam Hassan, he says, bring my daughters to Kufa. That day he stands up on the minbar and he says, Ahl Kufa, my daughters are coming. Tonight don't come out, my ghaira won't be able to take it. Then my daughters are there and you come out. Tradition says at night time, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is standing there in the masjid. Imam Hassan comes, he says, your daughters are there. He says to the people, he says, stay, I'm going to go. He goes. They say when he goes there, Imam Hassan was holding a camel. On the camel was a mahmal. On the mahmal there were curtains. At that moment he comes forward. He says, Hassan, do you give me permission to take my daughter myself? He says, Father, it's your daughter. Fathers, when they get older, you find that they become more softer. When they come softer, you see this. Naturally it happens. He grabs the camel and he begins to walk. He says, Zainab, undo the curtains, daughter. Look, this is the boundaries of Kufa, Zainab. And he begins to move again and he says, Zainab, undo the curtains and look. Zainab, look and see, this is the first street of Kufa. Zainab again looks. Again Amir al-Mu'mineen begins to walk. Again he says, undo the curtains, Zainab, look, this is the first road of Kufa. Again she looks. Finally a time comes when he says, undo the curtain and see, this is the bazaar of Kufa. At that moment Zainab can't take it. She says, Father, tell Abbas, tell Muhammad Hanafiya, but I'm never going to come to the bazaar like this, Father. Amir al-Mu'mineen with tears in his eyes says, no, Zainab, a time will come where you'll be paraded in the... A time will come where you'll be paraded. You know, the painful moment for Imam was this. When Ibn Muljim hit him on the head, Amir al-Mu'mineen was being stretched out. Old father now is being stretched out. When he comes to the door of his house, he says, lift me up so I can walk in. They say, Ali, you don't have the energy. He says, no, lift me up. They say, why? They say, because I've got daughters in the house. If they see their father lying like this, what is going to go on their hearts? Amir al-Mu'mineen walks in. Tradition says something. You know what the tradition says? Tradition says Ali never cried still. Imam Hassan comes crying. He says, Hassan, don't cry, this time will pass. All of Banu Hashim are gathered. Imam Hassan, he looks up towards him and he says, where's Hussein's son? Where's Hussein's son? You know what happens? Imam Hassan goes into a room. He sees Hussein was sitting there. When a child cries, if you've ever seen a child cry, when it begins to choke on its tongue, it cuts breathing. They say Hussein was sitting there choking on his tongue. He cut breathing. At that moment, Imam Hassan says, brother, if our father sees you like this, what's he going to say? Imam Hussein comes. Imam Hussein begins to cry. Amir al-Mu'mineen's son, this time will pass, don't cry. They say Ali didn't cry. He was giving peace to all of his children and all of the ashab. A time comes though, they say, when Zainab comes in crying, they say Amir al-Mu'mineen started to cry. He couldn't take the pain of Zainab, in the way Rasulullah couldn't take the pain of Fatima. But they say Amir al-Mu'mineen puts his head on the shoulder of Zainab, in the way Rasulullah put his head on the shoulder of Zahra. They say Rasulullah whispered something into the ears of Zahra, Ali whispered something into the ears of Zainab. I looked around everywhere to see what that was. There's one tradition that tells you what that was. You know what that was? That was this. They say that many years later, when Kufa and Sham comes, they say an old daughter comes and sits on Bazar Sham's door. The most difficult moment, one Bazar, that in 2 minutes you can cross. 25 hours Ahlul Bayt took to cross Bazar Sham. Why? Because Yazid wanted to humiliate Ahlul Bayt. Everyone was standing there shouting. They were screaming. They were chucking dirt. They were chucking water. They say when Zainab comes, Zainab sits on Bazar Sham. She doesn't move. Shimmer lashes her on the back. Zainab doesn't move. Women chuck dirt. Zainab doesn't move. People chuck water. Zainab doesn't move. Imam Sajjad comes forward. He says, Aunt, are you startled? Why don't you get up? I can't see you like this. She says something. She says, my father, when he was leaving this world, whispered something in my ear. Says, what was that? Says, Zainab, a time will come. Bazar Sham will come. Zainab, don't be startled. It will be difficult for you. But Zainab, wait for me. Me, Ali will come. I'll take you by the hand and take you in. She says, I'm waiting for my father to come. I'm waiting for my father to come. History doesn't say what happens, but a daughter stands up, puts her hand out, says, Assalamu alayka, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, and begins to... Look, I'm not going to recite anymore. Allah fulfill your hajat. I'm going to go directly. Night of Ashura comes. Sayyid al-Shuhada is walking. As he walks, he's going from tent to tent, tent to tent, tent to tent. Eventually he comes next to a tent. In there he's listening. What is he listening? There's a mother there with 2 children. Those 2 children are sitting there. She's combing one's hair and she's holding the other son. She's saying, tomorrow there's going to be a battle, son. People are going to fight. But you're the sons of Ja'far al-Tayyar. You're the sons of Ali Murtada. Sons, tomorrow I want you to go and I want you to give your life for your Imam. I want you to go and give your life for Hussein. I want you to go and give your life. And remember, sons, you are the sons of Haydar al-Qarrar. So you're going to get to the Euphrates. But sons, when you get to the Euphrates, remember, Sakina's thirsty as well. So don't drink. And if you drink, I'll never forgive you, sons. And she's talking to her sons and she's telling, Ashura Day now comes. Ashura Day comes. Every time she's looking at her sons and she's saying, why haven't you gone in the battlefield? Her sons are becoming upset. They don't know what to do. Tradition says they go to Abul Fadl Abbas and they say something. They say, our uncle is not giving us permission to go. Please, can you gain that permission? When they realize permission is not coming, Zainab says something. She says, call Abbas. Abbas comes. He puts his head down. Sayyidah Zainab says, she says, say to my brother, for the sake of my haqq, allow my sons to go. Abbas goes with tears in his eyes. Imam Hussein also has tears in his eyes. Now that Zainab is used to haqq, now Hussein can't say anything. They say one brother lifts up Aoun and the other one lifts up Muhammad. Both of them are on horses. And as both of them are on horses, the tradition says this, both of them go charging. And as both of them go charging, both of them are saying to each other, we've got to protect our uncle. We've got to fight. And mothers told her, we must get to Furat. Eventually both of these children come. But what happens as they get there, a Mal'oon comes from behind, hits one of the sons. The son loses balance. He hits the ground. Another son is hit on the head with a sword. He falls onto the ground again. They say Aoun passes away, but Muhammad has a little bit of life left. They say Sayyid al-Shuhada, like a lion comes. When he comes, they say Muhammad looks up. He says, uncle, I'm dying, but say one thing to my mother. I got to Furat, but we didn't drink from Furat. Says, I got to Furat, but we didn't drink from Furat. Tell our mother we didn't drink. They say 2 bodies are brought back. As those bodies are brought back, everyone is coming and giving condolences. Zainab doesn't come though. Eventually Imam Hussein says, please come. They say Zainab walks. She puts both of her arms on the chest of her sons. She says, my lions, I've given sadaqah for Hussein. Now I'm not going to take it back. Look, I can't recite anymore, and I don't think your women are going to take any more than this. But what I'll say is this. 10th of Muharram comes. Al-Wida to all of the Shuhada. They say 2 bodies are standing on the side. There's no mother to come and say Al-Wida. They say Zainab begins to walk. With tears in her eyes, she rolls it back, clenches her fist, doesn't look at the bodies. She whispers something. She says, Aoun and Muhammad, without you. Doesn't look at the bodies. Kufa, Sham happens. Look, I'm accelerating, going to the end. Sham takes place. They say when Yazid allowed for Ahlul Bayt to go, they say the first person, the cut head that came was a 6-month-old baby. One mother came forward and took the 6-month-old baby's head, put it to her chest. They say one by one as the heads come, there was a bag. In the bag, there was only one bag. Every other head came, but one head was in a bag. You know who comes forward? Zainab comes forward, says, give me the bag. Whose head was in there? Abbas's. Why was it in a bag? Because it was hit so many times on the head that the head was broken in a way that the bag kept together the head. Finally 2 heads come. When those 2 heads come, they say, the Shamis say, is the mother dead? There's no one to pick these heads up. Fizza comes, she says, give me the head, the mother is alive.
When she takes the head to say the Zainab, you know what Zainab says? She says, we are Ahlul Bayt. What we give, we don't take back. Give your condolences to Zainab. Look, I'm accelerating everything. I'm taking it to the final moments. They say Zainab now comes. Where does Zainab go to? She comes to Medina now, right? She comes to Medina. I'm accelerating everything. Even when she came to Karbala, she gave wida to Hussein. She goes to the grave of Abbas, but there were two graves on the corner. Again, Zainab doesn't go there. But she passes them. She doesn't look at them. She rolls back her tears, whispers, she says, Own and Muhammad, wida to you. Finally, Medina comes. She goes to the grave of her mother, takes the shirt of Hussein, puts it there. The grave begins to shake. She says, Mother, you're seeing the shirt, you're shaking like this. I was standing 70 paces away when shimmer went on the chest of my brother. وَجَالَسَ عَلَى صَدْرِ. When he grabbed the beard of my brother, Mother, I was watching. Look, I won't recite anymore. You know, you won't be able to take it. But let's go quickly. Quickly, let's move forward. You know what they say? Eventually a time comes. Zainab has gone to the house of Hussein. She's gone to the house of she's gone to every house. Finally, now she comes to her own house, Zainab does. As Zainab comes there, she's standing outside. She sits down outside her house. In that moment, who do you want? You'd want your husband to comfort you, right? They say, Abdullah bin Ja'far, Zainab is now tired. 40 days Zainab is tired. Zainab has seen all the tragedy of Karbala. She comes and she sits there. Abdullah bin Ja'far comes. But the tragedy is this. He looks up at Zainab. He says, oh old woman, my wife isn't here. Come back another time. They say now Zainab's heart is completely broken. She looks up and she says, Abdullah, recognize me. I'm Zainab. When she lifts her hands, they say Abdullah bin Ja'far collapses. She says, what's happened? What makes you collapse, Abdullah? He says, nothing, but when I saw your arms, there were marks on your arms. What happened to your arms, Zainab? Say that Zainab gets up. Final thing now. Allah accept your du'as. Final thing. Zainab goes inside. Heavy hearted, she goes into a small room. As she goes into the small room, the first thing she sees, two small musallas were there. She looks up, takes them, puts them to their chest. She says, Own and Muhammad, without you, I don't want to live any. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi.